Hello and welcome to the big kickoff with Betfred. All the best tips and predictions coming from the Racing Post, of course. League Two chat we're going to be having right now alongside Mark Langdon and myself. We've got Ali Maxwell from Not the Top 20 podcast and Simon Grayson as well. Chaps, good to see you.
Thank you.
Simon, I asked you about the League One curtailment and you said it was kind of the right thing to do. I take it you're saying the same thing about League Two as well. But what about the salary cap as well? How do you feel this will affect League Two going forward this season?
Yeah, I think when you go look at the curtailment of the season, it was an overall majority, wasn't it? I think it was one team, I think you mentioned it, Ali, was maybe Forest Green. And when you look at the likes of Port Vale for definite and Bradford were just on the periphery of the playoffs, for them to vote for it to finish tells you something that, one, they don't want to go up and spend too much more money, or they just felt it was a right decision to be made and they couldn't finance anything to in terms of the testing, etc., like we spoke about League One. The salary cap, how many times have you had real big teams in League Two where they've gone clear favourites and spending twice as much as the nearest opposition? Probably not too often, to be fair. But again, coming down the lines of making sure that clubs don't disappear. We talked about Bury in League One last year disappearing, and other clubs this year potentially still. I think it's a sensible thing to do. Again, what is the right balance between what level it should be set at? Some will think it should be lower, some should think it's higher. I think over the next few years you'll probably see it change at times, but I think it was something that needed to be brought in again.
You kind of mentioned the subject of my next question as well. And how worried are you for League Two clubs in the short, medium, long term?
Yeah, look,
despite the salary cap.
Well, I think the COVID has had a massive effect on so many clubs up and down the line. You can be a real big club, but a small one as well. It has had a massive effect. When you're seeing that Arsenal are making in the Premier League are making redundancies based on it, then how it cannot have an effect on teams in League One and League Two.
I think this is the league though where just the very matter of existence is more of an issue, and that's understandable. It's the fourth tier, not the first, second, third, but everyone knows that in League Two, more so than League One, more so than the Championship, and easily the Premier League, match day income is a huge percentage of their revenue, maybe upwards of 60-75% of some teams' income. So to be faced with even a certain amount of time without any fans and then a certain capacity, a certain percentage, it's really difficult. The very fact that they're all still going as we record, I think, is something of a victory. There have been a few chairmen who have been really good at communicating the issues to their fans, which is quite good because we've seen the transfer market is affected. There's still a lot of players who have been released and haven't been picked up yet. And, in an average summer, as a fan, you get frustrated with that. But there are certain chairmen, Robbie Cowling at Colchester wrote an amazing statement, just basically laying it all out to the point where even as a fan, you can't really argue with not risking the very future of the club. They have been given advance payments from all over, really, but they are just that, advance payments. They're not free money. And down the line, there could be further problems. So.
But I think also as well, this is where the football community and pyramid should just stick together. The money that is generated at the top end of it all in the Premier League is huge, isn't it? So why it cannot be some more money that is sent down to the League Two clubs to make sure that some clubs that have had fantastic history and tradition survive this real tough times?
Yeah, Ali's right, isn't it? It's about survival for clubs in League Two. But how worried are you if the money doesn't filter down?
I was worried in sort of March, April time. I must admit, I thought there could be sort of 10, 12 EFL teams that would just disappear, and I think it's great that that hasn't happened.
We still don't know when fans are going back in.
No, but conversely, in League Two, it could be easier because of the smaller gates for a lot of the teams to actually maybe get you, because we're seeing it in non-league, aren't we? They're going to be allowed back in. You might be able, a smaller team might be able to get a lot of their fans back in purely because they haven't got that many in the first place. But I mean, I want to be betting on a team that I'm pretty sure is going to be around in May too, and that is why I suppose you likes of Salford are right up there in the betting. They've got Peter Lim as the owner. Not many have got billionaires, for owners. So
and Champions League winners. As well.
Exactly. So it's important. It absolutely is, because we don't know what the winter's going to bring. There could be further postponements or anything.
The division as a whole, Swindon, Crewe, Plymouth and Northampton all promoted, Tranmere, Southend and Bolton down. Obviously teams have come up as well. Do you feel it's a stronger division football-wise or weaker?
I think when you look at what Salford have done in the market, Bolton are now one of the biggest clubs that have probably been in League Two. Have they got the finances sorted off the pitch? I think only time will tell on that. So there are some big clubs, Tranmere and a big football club as well. So probably in terms of size of the actual clubs, it's probably stronger than it was last year. Obviously, you've got to make sure, is the standard of football still going to be the same? Are you going to have sort of stars that are going to be scoring goals regularly and entertaining value and all things like that? But it's a competitive division in terms of 18 teams, I think, apart from 2 teams that we're probably going to talk about who are our promotion favourites.
Well, let's talk about them now. I mean, Bolton are the favourites. Do you understand why?
Well, I do, because the size of the club, immediately we spoke about Sunderland in League One. I mean, that definitely sort of in terms of the betting, it has an influence, and you can understand why. I mean, Bolton in League Two, it feels incredible, really, but
in Europe, not that long
well,
ago.
exactly, and they've signed Owen Doyle, who was the standout striker in the division last year. In terms of what they've done with Ian Evatt coming in as manager, there's quite a bit of excitement about him because he did well with Barrow last season in the National League. So yeah, I can understand why Bolton are the favourites. I would prefer Salford, I think, of the two, just because Peter Lim is in charge with that sort of class of '92, and you know,
is he playing up front?
He's not. But I mean, Gary Neville might struggle to get in, and Giggsy, some of the signings they've made, you know, because I mean, Ian Henderson, I mean, what a signing that is. You know, somebody that was scoring a lot of goals in League One has dropped down to League Two. They finished last season really well as well. They were a team on the up. You know, managed to get Clark in from Preston as well, who's dropped down 2 divisions. Turnbull has not gone up with Northampton. He stayed down. So I mean, they've recruited, I think, really well. They've seen the weakness in the market of the other teams and realised this is a good opportunity to gain promotion, and I think money will talk.
You fancy Salford as well, don't you?
I do. Whether or not they knew the salary cap was coming, they and a couple of other teams acted as if they did by making the signings before they were restricted in doing so. So I don't know what Salford's salary is in total, for example, but I'd be surprised if they wouldn't be looking to come down in order to meet the salary cap over the next few years, and probably a few other clubs. But obviously, at the moment, they can transition a little bit. They don't have to just get rid of all these guys now. So for everything Mark said, really, just the pure quality in the squad. They were favourites last season, in their first year ever in the EFL, but the squad and the way that they didn't just chuck a load of money at it in the summer necessarily. They picked up Richie Towell. He was eye-catching signing. It was in January, bizarrely, because normally you do most of your business in the summer. In January was when they really added like 3 or 4 League One players, just dropped down Easton from Fleetwood and Hunter as well. He's a great winger. Bruno Andrade was one of Lincoln's key players in their League Two promotion, and he's probably going to start on the bench by the looks of things, up front with Henderson, Tom Elliott, James Wilson, who's formerly Manchester United star, is still actually quite a young striker. It just looks too strong for me, and you know, in that sense, would you be worried about the manager? That would be the only thing that could put you off. No, Graham Alexander, I trust him to do a perfectly good job, and you know, certainly with 3 automatic promotion places, I'd be astonished if Salford didn't get one of them, and I'd pick them over Bolton, certainly.
What do you think of Salford's? And Ali's raised a very good point there, because you know the expectation will be there, won't it? They've climbed through the leagues with great haste. They're clearly looking to do the same again into League One. Yeah,
I think they were probably favourites this time last year, probably based more on their owners rather than the team. And it was more of a loyalty from Manchester United fans maybe and people who've been at the club for a while. But I think what they've got is they've got experienced players now. As you mentioned, Tom Clark was my captain at Preston for a long time. Jason Lowe's been captain at Bolton as well. Henderson's captain at Rochdale. They've got a wealth of experience. The spine of the team looks really strong, really solid. Unless nerves kick in and the pressure gets to them, then you can't see why they won't get promoted because of all the factors that we've mentioned. But again, it's amazing what things can happen when the extra pressure on. Last year they probably didn't need to get promoted. I would suggest that this year they have to get promoted.
Well, we're speaking about League One, so many teams going to so few places. Looks like the 2 stand out and it's 3 automatic promotion. But if you were either a Bolton player or the Bolton manager, tell us why you think that you could win the title itself, not just automatic promotion.
Well, Evo's done really well, hasn't he? I signed him for Blackpool as a player, and did I think he would be a manager? Probably not, but we've had this thrown. Well, because carefree attitude when you play, you've got no responsibilities, have you?
I mean, because the football is sort of been it's sort of like the Barcelona of the non-league, or
Barcelona, isn't it?
Yeah, Barcelona. But I mean, did he sort of show signs of wanting to play that way?
Well, he was always a ball-playing centre-back. He always liked to get it down and pass it out from the back through the lines back then, even though we were telling him to get it forward a little bit quicker. But I think he's looking and he's studied the game and he's decided, right, this is how we want to go and play, we want to entertain. And that's what's obviously brought Bolton to the forefront of him going there. Again, they've recruited Jilks in goal, who's another experienced, one of his ex-teammates. Doyle is a big signing because he's a marquee signing, tried and trusted, another player that I've had at a football club. And if Doyle can recreate what he did last year, then Bolton are not going to be too far away. But there's going to be other teams in around it because of the 2 big teams. Now they're the big fish that everybody wants to beat every week.
Owen Doyle is a big one, though, isn't he? He scored 11 more league goals than anybody else last season.
Well, it was a terrible division for goal scorers last season. I don't know if Yates actually ended up second top goal scorer, but there was a point where it was Doyle and Yates both playing for Swindon, and it was a big reason for their success. So look, there weren't any others that stood out, even though you've got the likes of Nicky Maynard in the division, who you always kind of assume will be up there. That didn't come to pass. So yeah, I'm hoping to see a more diverse selection of goal scorers in the league this year, but there's no doubt that Doyle, in a team that creates chances and where he doesn't have to do a huge amount other than make clever movement in the box and finish well, which he can do better than anyone at this level. I'd be surprised if he didn't notch a fair few goals, but I don't think that Swindon team was just so perfect for him, and it's just hard to recreate that.
Okay, pretty unanimous here with the top 2, and we'll come on to the order in just a second. Who else, Mark?
I mean, I think Tranmere have made some interesting signings. They were pretty unlucky to be relegated in terms of controversy behind it, the points per game. There was a lot of football to be played there, and they fancied their chances of staying up. I think that Spearing and Vaughan had plenty. Particularly if you get James Vaughan firing and scoring, it wasn't always the case necessarily at Bradford. The other one, I don't really see any reason why Exeter will suddenly sort of fall down a hole. They've been around that playoff sort of area for the last couple of years. And I would probably just edge towards them maybe to finish 3rd.
They won't want the playoffs, will they?
No, they definitely won't want the playoffs. God, they've really been through it, haven't they? At the moment, they've still got Randall Williams, who's one of the best players in the division last season, just a creative force, unlike many others at this level. So if he remains there, that's crucial. Because actually, aside from him last year, I felt like in the final third, they weren't a top-level team compared to the 3 that went up, who played brilliant football and pretty much created chances whenever they wanted to. It felt a bit harder for Exeter to do that. So that would be my main concern about them. But in general, I agree with Mark that they're a club that is very sensibly run, that has good people making the right decisions. And I think in Matt Taylor, from what we've seen so far, a promising young manager who should only be better this year with another year's experience and a squad which is fairly established, and we hope has some of these exciting young academy players coming through, because in League Two terms, barely anyone does it better than Exeter. And I think because of COVID, Colchester and Exeter, 2 teams who have very good academies, they're really going to lean on some of those guys a bit more this year. That might not be a good thing if you want to back them to get promoted.
Who's your third one?
So my 3rd is Port Vale.
Okay.
They were sort of, they could have been that dark horse that arrives late and enters the playoff. Everyone was very impressed with how unselfish they were in voting to finish the season, given that they'd been on a good run and they were only 1 or 2 points off it. Another team, at the risk of just banging on about off-field stuff, who seem to be run really well ever since the change of ownership about a year ago. The new owners have really got everyone rallied together, and it's a place with an excellent atmosphere just radiating around it. I think that can take you quite a long way. They held on to Nathan Smith, who's their key centre-back, him and Leon Legg last season were magnificent together, and they've actually added a bit of firepower, which I think was probably their main area of concern last season. So you've still got Tom Pope there, but he's got Theo Robinson's joined as well. Cullen is there too. So I just have a feeling that Port Vale can keep going upwards and maybe sneak into third spot.
Okay, so you've gone Exeter.
Yeah, I mean, I am a little bit nervous about potentially Williams going, but it's part and parcel of
we've still got
doing
a month left of the window,
Exactly.
haven't we? You've gone Port Vale. Who are you going for, Si?
Just to be different, I'll go for Tranmere. I think talk about the experience of the spine of the team. Vaughan up front, Spearing, who had at Blackpool last year, captain, leader, knows what it's all about. We'll get the lads around him, get the best out of them as well. Michael Jackson promoted from a number 2 to the number 1, another ex-player of mine. There's a lot of people, ex-players going into
They've
the
been
job,
learning
so,
off you, Si, haven't they?
Well, good and bad, I suppose. So I just think with them, they could be, because they're relegated, I don't think they'll have lost too many players. They'll use the contacts around the Liverpool, Everton areas to get players in from the academies, under 23s. So I think there are a big club at Tranmere.
I think Khan's a good signing as well. It didn't work out for him at Mansfield, but there was a lot of this time last year when he went to Mansfield. He was expected to be,
He's one of many Mansfield signings.
Yeah, he was. And didn't. So I think you don't suddenly lose your ability because of a bad season for Mansfield. So that could be another one there. So yeah, Tranmere should be up there.
What about Mansfield themselves?
Last year was so painful.
It was very
painful.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was, when they changed manager and then went for Graham Coughlin, and okay, he's come in, it's difficult, you're trying to work it out in the last few months of the season. He didn't massively improve, even for changing the manager, and you're expecting a relatively expensively assembled team to pick up, that new manager bounce. It didn't really happen. I mean, they've got a lot of work to do. They didn't feel unlucky last year that they were so bad. They've got good players, but I don't know. You'd have to question, I suppose, the attitude maybe of some of the players. Mate, it could be a difficult dress. I don't know, because this is not a team that should be in the bottom, finishing in the bottom half. But the fact that they did and were so bad would put me off.
Plus they lost CJ Hamilton to Blackpool as well. He was a key player, wasn't he? Assists and goals for him last year. Whether they can replace him is another thing as well, isn't it? So underachieved last year. Will he be able to do it again?
I spoke to a friend of mine who's a Mansfield fan yesterday. He won't be happy at all. He thinks they're playoffs. Yeah.
Same every year, isn't it?
What do we think about the playoffs? And an outside bet for them.
Nick Alley's one there with Port Vale. They are a team actually that was really well liked in the market, not last season, the season before, and then they lived up to that. So they would be. I think they're a team that can finish in the playoffs. Forest Green are quite an interesting one, because there's a lot of, we're talking about teams that are financially sound, and they are a team that you would think could really go for it, and I'm not sure if they are. I don't know. It's wide open though. I think outside of those top couple of positions, I would probably go for Tranmere to win the playoffs.
Okay.
Yeah, team not mentioned yet is Walsall, that I'm feeling pretty good about. First and foremost, big fan of the manager, Darryl Clark. They were relegated from League One last year, down in League Two. By no means a huge success, probably a 6 out of 10 season. They finished 12th, I think. It felt like there was a bit of work to do behind the scenes just to readjust the atmosphere around the place. I think there was a change at board level or ownership level as well. And I think Darryl Clark is a manager with a very big personality who makes a lot of decisions based on the character of the players. And you've seen in the way that he's got rid of some and brought others in that he's trying to build a team in his image. And of course, last time he was at this level with Bristol Rovers, they put together a really impressive promotion campaign. They didn't even start that season too well, but he's had a habit, even in League One with Bristol Rovers, of finishing really strong. His teams tend to do well the second half of the season. By the end of last season, Walsall were much better, looked a lot more consistent, a lot more solid. I think actually they've just got a really nice squad. It's not absolute standout, but I see them being quite a consistent team. And I think in this division, with one extra promotion spot, that can actually be very, very valuable.
Big teams, we're not even mentioned, like Bradford and Scunthorpe, pretty heavyweight sort of.
I'll mention
teams.
Scunthorpe in a minute.
Oh right, okay.
Mention them now if you want.
Well, I'm very worried about Scunthorpe.
Are you?
So
So
am I
it's
as
not
well.
the right
Are
section.
you?
It's not the right segment for
Okay.
that.
Well, let's move on to that section if you want.
Yeah, relegation terms. First thing to say is Morecambe aren't going down.
No.
Bookie's favourite for the 55th season in a row.
Yeah.
I think Derek Adams will have them safe, as they have been for the last decade. And so I'm looking at some longer odds. And look, I don't say this with any joy or glee, but in League Two terms, if you look at the teams that have gone down over the last few years, you would put it mainly down to off-field issues and poor management of the football club, not the football manager, those above him. So when I look at the League Two teams heading into the season, I can't lie that I'm pretty concerned about Scunthorpe. A few years ago, we thought they were going to get promoted from League One. They were spending a lot of money in order to do so for a club that doesn't have particularly large revenues. And then it all went very wrong. They obviously were playoffs, relegated, right down towards the bottom last season. I can't remember exactly where they finished, but they left the appointment of a manager pretty late. Neil Cox has come in, popular with the fans. He's actually a Scunthorpe youth team player back in the day and went on to have a great career. Really popular guy, but hasn't managed at senior level before. And just looking at the squad, the sort of names that you used to see in Scunthorpe squads don't seem to be there anymore. There's a lot of inexperience, and I'm just a bit worried that it's just trending the wrong way for me.
Yeah, I would agree. That was the sort of team that I looked and worried for a little bit. That over the years, the owner has backed the managers, put a lot of money in, but you can see the gradual decline of an input of money that he's been putting in. And a lot of players have left the football club and lesser names are coming in. Neil Cox going in, number 2 to Neil Ardley at Notts County, wasn't he? So he's experienced in the game, but it's very difficult sometimes to be able to get all your ideas across and run a football club how you want to when you're maybe not getting the necessarily help that you've got above. So
the thing is, do you have the foundation to do the job that you think you can do? That's why I'm a bit worried about Southend as well. Because very similarly, although in slightly different circumstances, it's just a club that I'm concerned about based on the last few seasons of just decline. A lot of managers in and out, not a lot of joined up thinking for me.
I mean, I watch a fair bit of Southend, so I don't live too far away, and they were quite strong, sort of. You know, when they went up from League Two, they were strong, and then they had a good old go in at the start of League One. I mean, last year was an absolute joke of a season, really. It wasn't. I mean, Sol Campbell sort of eventually took the flat, but it wasn't. I don't think he did a particularly bad job. It was just. You know, they've been talking about moving to a new stadium for feels like about 30 years, and it's not happening. Bit of disconnect. I think they're quite happy with the appointment of the new manager that they've got. I agree with Ali that I mean, Morecambe always in this position, and Derek Adams is a pretty shrewd guy, I think, to be managing at the absolute foot of League Two. I mean, I'm still surprised he took that job, really, because I'm sure if he would have been a bit more patient, something better and more attractive would have opened up for him, given the job he'd done previously at Plymouth and in Scotland. The one for me would be Oldham. We talk about how teams have run off the pitch. Never feels like it's far from a crisis at Oldham. Harry Kewell, the new manager, I mean, his Crawley team played some decent football, but I mean, he hasn't got necessarily a great record, I think it's fair to say. And Johnny Smith, I was having a look, I mean, he got, I think it was 9 goals and 6 assists last season. He's gone to Swindon in League One, the on-loan player. So replacing somebody of that quality might be difficult.
Wow. Have to see how that goes then, won't we? I mean, in terms of top scorers,
I think it's a really difficult. I've got a couple of top scorers, but nothing outside of that, because I think it's a really difficult league, and you could have real egg on your face in sort of a couple of months' time, because things could change pretty quickly. I think in this division.
I've got a top goal scorer. I was very surprised to see Alfie May at 66-1 when I was having a look earlier today, because when he joined Cheltenham in January, he was the man that scored the goals for them as they sort of motored towards what could have been automatic promotion. Then the season was curtailed. They were right up there. It looked like he was the perfect fit for this team, because they played 2 up top, 3-5-2, and they're always going to have a strong target man type. That is not Alfie May, but he's small, he's quick, his movement is excellent, he runs in behind, and certainly on the basis of what I saw, I think he got 6 goals in about 1,000 minutes. It was as good a record as pretty much anyone else in the division, not named Owen Doyle. And I just think, we haven't mentioned Cheltenham at all. And they were one of the best teams in the league last year. They were one shocking result, really derailed their season in the playoffs.
A few, though,
it's the beauty of the playoffs. They have lost a few, and maybe that's why we're feeling a bit concerned about them Broom and Doyle Hayes were key creators for them, and you worry where the goals will come from. But Alfie May's the one for me. Just if they're going to be good and he's going to be their main striker, I think 66-1 seems very fair.
I think in terms of the Golden Boot, I think if you fancy Bolton to win the league, I think I'd rather, at a bigger price, I'd rather back Doyle to be the Golden Boot, because I don't see Bolton winning it unless Doyle is as good as what he was kind of last season. So to me it makes sense to go for Doyle, and then one at an absolute massive price. And again, he's sort of three figures in terms of odds for a reason, but it's Brandon Goodship at Southend. Now, Southend could be absolutely useless, as Ali, well, he didn't say useless, but I'll put words into his mouth. They could struggle again.
Pointed towards.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, they could struggle again, but they're still a relatively big team, I think, in League Two standards. They will ordinarily have fancied themselves to actually be up there when they've been in League Two before. Probably not got the players this time around, but Goodship moved from non-league to League One, and it's quite a big jump. I think League Two is a lot easier to kind of make your mark from non-league. But the key thing for me here is that when Goodship scored 74 goals, I think it was, in 83 games for Weymouth, the manager was Mark Moseley. The manager of Southend is now Mark Moseley, and I'm sure Simon will have had players before that he got on with and can get the best out of. If this is a relationship similar, then it's the sort of bet that I like to have at crazy odds, because if you can score goals in non-league, I don't really see why you should suddenly be a flop in League Two. And if the manager gets the best out of him, who knows?
Can you understand what Mark's saying there? And also your top scorer.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's that connection that sometimes a manager knows what is to get the best out of the player, and what the player knows what the manager wants from himself. Probably the best example I've got is probably Jermaine Beckford, that we went to 3 different clubs. Some people just kicked him out, didn't want him at certain clubs, and I'd pick him up and get him going again. And it's just that relationship that you've got going. So at 200 to 1, I think you said it's worth a little punt, to be fair. But I think
I'm down to 100 now.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to go a little bit closer to home, to a more even money type role. I just think with what Salford have got, Henderson being as their number 1 striker, the chances that they'll create, I think he would be my pick for the Golden Boot, because he's just scored consistently lots of goals in League One at Rochdale that were always really a struggling team. So not as much value from my discussion point, but I just think he can't dismiss Owen Doyle as well, to be fair. But the only thing there is, will Bolton really create loads and loads of chances? I just think Salford will probably create more.
Okay, chaps. Great League Two chat. Thank you very much indeed. We shall be talking about the National League up next. Of course, remember, if you are planning to bet, please bet responsibly.